Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for you guys. Today in this one we are going to be finally taking a look at some games from Season 7 here. I am still in the very first few hours of the season at this point, making my way up through Platinum, up to Diamond, which I am hoping to do in the next couple of days. But aside from that, I honestly don't know that I really have any like try-hard sweat goals for this season. Just because, you know, I've talked about this a little bit in the last season, but it was fun, you know. It's fun to try to get to, you know, the top rank as quickly as possible, but I've noticed, especially lately, that it kind of I wonder if it's contributing to making the game feel a bit more stale. Like, you know, I kind of like reach my goal super early, and then the rest of the season it's just like, oh well, now I don't feel like I need to try at all. And yeah, that does let me showcase more, like a greater variety of decks without having to worry about losing rank. But I think a couple of people have pointed this out in the comments. It's definitely something I've observed as well, is that like games in Diamond 1 are just not quality, like at all. Like compared to the number of games I had to play to get these particular replays for TriZoo, as opposed to, you know, like another deck that when I was in Diamond 1, it's like astounding how many more games you have to play. Excuse me, sorry about that. How many more games you have to play in Diamond 1 just to get like a set of quality games to showcase, because people will just concede right away if you even begin to go off, right? Whereas when you're actually climbing and people want to play it out because there's an actually, you know, something at stake there, I don't know, it's a lot easier to get better games that are like better back and forth and all that fun stuff. So I don't know, maybe they'll like keep the game. I've also just noticed people, not only in the comments but on the subreddit in general, just talk about it like, oh, it's like Sword Soul format seems just kind of boring a lot more quickly than the last format did, and I kind of agree. Like, I do think Sword Soul is a pretty interesting deck and it is really fun to play, but Sword Soul does seem to be dominating a bit more than TriZoo did in the last format, right? Like with TriZoo, Drytron, all that fun stuff. Like, it still felt like there was a more healthy balance of decks, whereas I don't know, it does seem like there's just a lot of Sword Soul running around, but there's also still a good variety of decks to play, so I kind of have mixed feelings about the format. In any case, so yeah, let's go ahead and just list the deck off card by card, and then we'll talk about it a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at some games. So it's still obviously the same build from, should be yesterday's video. So we have 3 Tri-Brigade Nervall, 3 Maxx, 2 Tri-Brigade Kerass, 3 Tri-Brigade Kitt, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 1 Ghost Spell on Haunted Mansion, 1 Destiny Hero Celestial, 1 Zoodiac Whiptail, 1 Zoodiac Thoroughblade, 1 Zoodiac Ramram, 2 Tri-Brigade Fraktall, 1 Destiny Hero Dasher, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Harpie's Feather Duster, 2 Fusion Destiny, 1 Lightning Storm, 3 Fire Formation Tenki, 2 Call by the Grave, 2 Crossout Designator, 2 Forbidden Droplet, 2 Infinite Impermanence, and 2 Tri-Brigade Revolt. And then the extra deck we have 1 Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, 1 Zoodiac Trident, 1 Zoodiac Borbo, 1 Zoodiac Chakanine, 1 Divine Arsenal Zeus Sky Thunder, 1 Salmon Great Almirage, 1 Predaplant Vert Anaconda, 1 Ancient Warrior's Oath Double Dragon Lords, 1 Tri-Brigade Ferrijit the Baron Blossom, 1 Tri-Brigade Bearbrum the Rampant Rampager, 1 Tri-Brigade Rugal the Silver Sheller, 1 Appaloosa Bow the Goddess, 1 Access Code Talker, and then 2 Tri-Brigade Surrogate the Ominous Omen. Like I said, I've just been rocking the same build. I know in the last build, or the last video, I think I talked a little bit about maybe thinking about taking out some of the flex spots for trying other techs, and those slots being Ghost Spell and Lightning Storm, but honestly now, having played on the ladder a little bit more, or just having played on the ladder in general, I do really like those cards just in the, like, climbing the ladder kind of meta format, because yeah, once you get up to Diamond 1, you can definitely like start to look at more interesting tech options, because there's a lot more like room for flexibility in terms of what you run. But I really like having just the you know, disruption / hand trap, or the going second option when climbing on ladder, just because you are playing out more games, and I think it's better. I just always tended to a little bit more to having a good variety of responses rather than having a variety of like combo options. If the combo options aren't necessary for plays, or, you know, allow for greater plays, then I tend to like more disruption, because in a best of 1 format, it's really important to have obviously not only, you know, your own plays, but also be able to stop your opponent's plays, because, you know, we don't have the sideboard to specifically tech against the opponent going into games 2 and 3. So it's just more important, I feel, in best of 1 to have more broad tech options in that regard. So let's see. Yeah, no, I'm just thinking about like the build and if I have any other thoughts to add from, you know, just like the bit of games that I've played so far, laddering. I don't know that I really do. I mean, the format is still more or less the same as what it was. I think in a lot of respects, you know, most of us are kind of just in like next pack waiting room again already, but I kind of thought this was going to happen too, where it's like, oh, we get so used to the way a certain TCG or OCG format is that when they only release like part of the cards at a time, it tends to feel a bit incomplete. So I think a lot of what is causing people to feel like this format is stale is also them feeling like the format is incomplete because we don't have adventures and flows yet. And then, you know, there was announced that a new pack was coming out, but then it was just Exo Sisters and it was kind of like a nothing update. I mean, I don't know, and people didn't seem particularly excited about it, and I can say that I wasn't either, but who knows, maybe once adventures and flows come in, we'll see another wave of people. I mean, I'm sure it's gonna be a cycle, like almost any digital card game is like this, right? Like, new set comes out, a lot of interest in the game, a lot of people hyped up about it, then, you know, time goes on, people get used to the meta, it develops, and then people kind of get bored of it, and then it's like, okay, what is the next thing coming out, and then it comes out, and then so on and so forth. So it just kind of tends to be the natural cycle of things, I think, in that regard. But all right, let's go ahead and take a look now at some gameplay. Yeah, just trying to think. I don't have anything else to add about the build at this point, so yep, let's go and look at some games. Alright, this first replay we're going to watch is going to be against Sword Soul Tendy. Always nice to showcase wins against this deck, especially as TriZoo, because, you know, TriZoo and Sword Soul Tendy. TriZoo is arguably falling a little bit more towards tier 2 at the time that I'm recording this. When I did the meta report, you know, the power disparity has definitely grown since then, so it always feels nice to like be able to showcase and have in general a good win against Sword Soul Tendy playing as TriZoo. It definitely helps going first, obviously, but then we get the Tenki for the Fraktall line, so that's nice. We'll go for the Kerass here just because I have so many different targets for it in hand. I'll discard the Ramram to go ahead and special the Kerass. My plan right now is to make an Appaloosa and also go for a Trident, but at the same time, I think I end up not going for the... Well, I know I end up not going for the Trident here. Oh, that's right, because we're going to actually end up with a slightly better line instead, but I do want to go for a 4-material Appaloosa here, and there's a ton of different things you could have gone for there, right? Like, I could have made a Vert for a DPE and Revolt setup, I could have made like a 3-material Appaloosa, and I could have like worked in like a double Dragon Lord or something, but I ultimately decided that in this particular format, with Sword Soul, this was also like the very first game, if I recall correctly, of the season that I played, so you know, I knew Sword Soul Tendy was at a high, you know, showcasing on the tier list, so I knew a lot of people were going to be flocking towards it. Also, just the format right now is just known as like the Sword Soul format, so I feel like it's a pretty safe bet that that's what you're playing against. And when you can make an Appaloosa, especially one with a lot of materials like I was able to make here, that can be very, very helpful, particularly against Sword Soul Tendy, right? Because the Appaloosa is going to hurt them a lot more than the DPE will. In a vacuum, I think generally speaking, if you're not sure what deck you're playing against, DPE plus Revolt is probably still the better option to go into. And here, though, I think because I was able to get particularly a 4-material Appaloosa, I was like, we'll just go for that. And we'll see what we draw off the Baron Blossom and see if that's any good as well. We haven't normal summoned yet, so we could also go for a Thoroughblade here. So yeah, we get a Fusion Destiny, pick that up, and I'll put back the the Droplet, and then here I actually misclicked and put back the Thoroughblade by accident, so I should have been able to set up a Trident as well, but I accidentally kept that instead of the Fusion Destiny, so oh well. Or actually, by the way around, I accidentally put back that instead of the Fusion Destiny, so we still get the Revolt though, so no big deal. I'll go ahead and use Revolt when they special summon Ashina here. I want to banish this so that 1, they don't go into a Monk and have the normal monster set up for those plays, and 2, by banishing it, it's no longer and obviously in hand or graveyard, so they won't be able to banish it in order to special something from deck later on to help their combos. That's why I didn't negate it with Appaloosa again. I'm just going to go ahead and banish it here instead. Yeah, Sword Soul Tendy tends to be a little bit more resilient against disruption, like in the form of, you know, Revolt or DPE, but a little bit more susceptible to effect negation. We see that a lot with Moye, right? That's why Valor and Imperm are really good techs in general this format. Well, not techs, I mean, they're just good cards in general, but they're especially good to play this format because they're good against Sword Souls, again, like Moye, Taya, activating their effects. Especially because generally those cards also take the normal summon as well. So, but Appaloosa is particularly good because again we can also stop the long Yuan like in the hand here, right? We're gonna go ahead and negate that, and then now they can't Moye or long Yuan, not only now but for the rest of the turn. Like even though it doesn't destroy it, they still can't use it for the rest of the turn. And yeah, they're able to run over the Appaloosa there, but that's another reason the 4-material Appaloosa is so good in particular, because if it only been a 3-material Appaloosa, they would have summoned the Moye, activated, negated, then they could have run it over, and they could have used the long Yuan to set up a Baron like on the next turn. But here, because it was 4 materials, specifically, they actually don't get that setup, and we're able to secure the victory. So, yeah, if you see opportunities to go for like a big Appaloosa in particular, very, very good going first against Sword Soul. And again, I also should have technically had a Trident set up with that as well. But again, the Misclick, I accidentally kept the Fusion Destiny. There would be an argument to maybe keep Fusion Destiny anyway, or keep Trident but not summon it, or keep the Thoroughblade but not summon it to go into a Zeus for next turn. Like the argument of having follow-up plays instead of just dumping all your eggs in the turn 1 basket. But I think with the Appaloosa and the Revolt, the Trident definitely wasn't necessary, but it definitely also would have been relatively safe, I think, with the Appaloosa. Obviously, it would have come out in defense mode, so it would have been another alternative that Lightning Storm would have been able to hit, because that was something I was thinking about, is like Lightning Storm hitting the Appaloosa would definitely hurt real bad. But also, there's also the fact that Sword Soul Tendy tends not to run Lightning Storm like at all, pretty much ever, so I wasn't really worried in that regard either. Of course, if it had not been Sword Soul Tendy that we were playing against, sure, it might have been like a less optimal setup, but is ultimately still fine, right? Like 4 Monster Negates to Revolt, and again, should have been a Trident as well, is definitely still fine against pretty much most decks. Again, in a vacuum, DPE tends to be better, but it's still a totally fine setup. So, okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the next game. Next game here is going to be against Numeron, a deck you tend to see come out of the woodwork once it comes time to ladder. Not that I really blame people, because it's in a pretty efficient, relatively cheap deck to ladder with. Let's see here. So we start with Double Kitt Ramram, as well as, of course, the Maxx Designator. So we're going to go for the Almirage line here in order to secure our plays. That's obviously going to, Kitt into Almirage, and we'll send the Nervall. Get ourselves a Kerass. Opponent has the Ash, but we have the Crossout Designator, so not really concerned about that. But yeah, we're going to get the Kerass, and here my plan is to pitch the Ramram, right? So then I can summon the Kerass, then I can go to Fragile, and then I can use Fragile to actually summon the Kitt, and then I could potentially have more plays beyond just the regular Kitt Almirage line, because I actually have the additional Tri-type to discard with Kerass, and then another Tri-Brigade monster on top of that. So we use Kerass' effect, but the opponent has Imperm, which is definitely unfortunate. Won't be able to go into that full line. But one of the nice things about DPE is that this line in particular, where normally if I was not playing like the DPE engine, I would have just had to end there with like the Almirage and the Kerass, so it would have been really bad and awkward. But because we actually did not resolve the Kerass effect, we can still use Almirage as a material for this turn. So we'll just send them for the Vert Anaconda and then set up a DP anyway. We don't get the Revolt with this, but at the very least we do get to set up a pretty decent boss monster. And we have a Maxx in our hand and a Kitt for follow-up plays. So yeah, even though our plays, did get interrupted a couple of times, that's still totally fine because, well, 1, we had a counter for the Ash. 2, the Imperm didn't stop us getting out a relatively good boss monster, and also now they have 4 cards in their hand instead of 6, right? They're starting off with a lot fewer resources than normally would, which is definitely not something to like totally discount in situations like this, right? Even though this game is more combo intensive and not as much about card advantage as it used to be, card advantage is still a really important factor to the game. So noting your opponent's card advantage is definitely really helpful. Especially for situations like this where it's like, okay, they only have 4 cards to work with. I have Disruption in DPE, and also Disruption in the form of Maxx, and also more potential card advantage in the form of Maxx. So I feel pretty good about the spot we're in. Now here they discard the wall and reveal themselves as the Numerons. Obviously once the network resolves, I'm going to go ahead and pop DPE and the network. And the reason I pop DPE and not Vert Anaconda is because let's assume they have like another network in hand, which is not terribly uncommon for Numeron, right? Or like a terraforming to get a network, right? And they play another network, they activate the effect, they summon the gates, right? With the Vert Anaconda out, the first one attacks for over Vert dealing 500, putting me at 75, boost the other ones up to 2,000, but now I don't have monsters anymore, so the other 3 at 2,000 each attack me for 6,000, and I don't lose. If I had blown up for Anaconda and left DP in defense mode, then the first one would have attacked, boosted these to 2,000, second one would have attacked, boosted these up to 4,000, this one would have attacked to run over DPE, boosting the last one up to 8,000, which then would have attacked me for lethal, so... you do have to be mindful of what you're popping. Of course, here they actually don't have the other network, which I was genuinely surprised at, because it seems like they always do, but nope, they did not here, so... Now at this point, it's just about finding lethal with just the Kitt here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by summoning Kitt, banishing 2, and then I'll use the Bare Bones effect, and the other thing too is that we have to find lethal with the Kitt and only 2 materials in graveyard, but it's actually not that hard, so like I said, we're going to banish 2, summon Kitt, or summon Bare Brum rather. Then we'll use Bare Brum's effect. We go to use Celestial, but opponent's got an Ash to prevent us from getting the extra draws here. I probably should have summoned a Tri-Brigade monster instead of the Ramram, but I was potentially planning on setting up a Zeus here if I needed to, but then I realized I could just go for lethal instead, right? We're just going to go for Rugal, using the Kitt and the Bare Brum, not using Bare Brum's effect so that we can summon non-Tri-Brigade monsters this turn. We will use Kitt to send a Nervall and get a Kerass though, because there's kind of no reason not to. And then we'll just go for access code, so pretty easy stuff. Access code is going to go up to 5,300 attack. That combined with the 500 damage and 2,500 from these two is going to be 8,300, which will be enough to OTK our opponent. So pretty easy win there. Not too shabby, not too difficult. Let's go ahead and move on to the next game. So this one is going to be a mirror match actually. It'll be TriZoo versus TriZoo. Builds were relatively similar. They were playing Kerass instead of Whiptail. I'm sure there were other more major differences. I just don't remember them off the top of my head. I just glanced at the build. Alright, so we're going to lead off with a Tenki here. I'll go ahead and get a Fraktall, and we'll go ahead and try to activate it, see if they have a response for it. And they don't, so we'll just go ahead and send Kitt. Go ahead, geez, I said like 3 times in a row there. If they had Ash to Fraktall, then we could have potentially set up a different... I think we had the Kitt and the Kerass and the Nervall, so there was that line to set up as well, so it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. They do have the Imperm here, but like I just said, we have a Kerass plus a Nervall. Actually, I'll probably just go ahead and end up sending the Thoroughblade here, right? And probably just go for a Farajit and then summon the Nervall. Yep, and then we can do even more extensive plays. Opponent's got a Maxx though. Definitely not a good idea to play too extensively typically into Maxx. I know I had the viewer special where I talked about maybe it's not so bad to do it, but turn 1 I think is definitely not the time to do it. So I will still give them a couple of draws here, because it's not too bad to give them 2 draws in order to get out DPE here. Well, to try to anyway, but then they have an Imperm, so no DPE here, although that does more or less mitigate the extra draws that they got from Maxx, so they'll still be only starting off with 5 cards instead of 6. So again, card advantage matters a little bit more than I think some players give it credit for. That might actually not be a bad Master Duel lesson, is to talk about card advantage, although, I don't know, it'll be interesting to figure out how you would structure that. Well, if you'd like to see that, let me know. Or just in general, if you have any, like, Master Duel Academy. Did I say classroom earlier? I meant to say Academy. Master Duel Academy, Jesus, video ideas. If you have any, let me know, because I'm very eager to continue that series. I have a couple ideas myself, but I am always eager to hear back from you guys about it. So, yeah, opponent's going to do the Kerass and, oops, sorry about that. Kerass and, was it Nervall line? You know, sending away the Kerass and the Shurg into the Farajit to get the search here. Fortunately, I do have the Nibiru. I actually am really considering putting in a second. I know I talked about this a little bit before. I think in the last video I showcased TriZoo, but I would love to actually put in another Nibiru because this card is just so good in this format. It's so good in general, but especially in this format, where not only just Sword Soul Tendy, but pretty much everything that isn't Elder Lich is triggering Nibiru left and right. So, and even Elder Lich occasionally will be able to trigger Nibiru. I mean, it's pretty rare, but... Okay, so opponent's got 2 back row. I'm not really that concerned about Revolt. Well, okay, actually, no, strike that. I am a little concerned about Revolt, even though they didn't get the opportunity to search it. They could still definitely have it here. So we do need to be mindful about that. I'm going to go ahead and normal summon this Nervall and just banish 4 for the Shurg. I want to start picking off their back row as early as possible. Okay, sure enough, they do have the Revolt here, but fortunately for me, they activated it at a pretty good time for me. So, the thing about Revolt is, right, or just Shuriken in general too, if the Shuriken gets removed from the field before the chain resolves, then they won't get the prompt to activate their Shuriken's effect to banish. So, since Chain Link 2 was Revolt and Chain Link 1 was my Shuriken, I'll just use my Chain Link 1 effect to banish their Shuriken, and you can see that they didn't get a prompt to activate their Shuriken's effect because it wasn't on the field by the time the Chain Link had resolved anymore. From what I understand, that's the reason that happened. So, that's the other reason why I summoned Nervall and just went for 4 to summon Shuriken, was to draw out a Revolt and get a banish that was more favorable to me. Now, I'm going to kind of take a page out of my opponent's book, or, well, not really out of their book. I mean, obviously, this is a play I know about too, but we're going to do kind of the same thing and use the Shuriken as material to go into a Farajit. They'll have a Call Bite to get the Nervall search, but one search is all we need to get a Kerass here anyway, so... And yeah, as soon as I search the Kerass, they realize that I can just go ahead and summon that, and then we will get the lethal. So, yeah, so that whole exchange there with the Revolt and the Shuriken is definitely something to keep in mind for the mirror match, or just in general. Just that if you use Revolt to summon Shuriken, but something on that same chain link will cause that Shuriken you just summoned to leave the field, you will not be able to banish a card because Shuriken is no longer on the field by the time the chain link has resolved. So definitely keep that in mind when you're doing the Revolt timings. That's why, in my opinion, my opponent should have flipped up Revolt as soon as I normal summon Nervall, because one, it's pretty obvious I'm going to use Nervall's effect to extend my plays. Two, I've already committed to a normal summon, so I have to already have Kerass and another tri-type in hand in order to further continue my plays from the hand. So, and then 3, then it doesn't give the opportunity for what just happened to happen, where, like, yeah, I could have done more extensive plays if I had banished 2 and maybe something else, potentially, I don't know, but because I had the opportunity to banish 4 and I knew my opponent, it was decently likely for them to have a Revolt face down, given that they had 2 back row, I just went for the 4, so, yeah, again, that's also another tip for the mirror match. If they summon something and you think they're going to banish 4 and summon Shuriken, just flip Revolt and banish the Tri-Brigade monster they summoned so they don't have that opportunity. But, alright, let's go ahead and take a look at the next game now. So this one's going to be against 60 card IDS. It's funny, actually, now that I think about it, I couldn't tell you the last time I saw an IDS deck that wasn't 60 cards, but it makes sense. I mean, it's kind of is the optimal way to play the deck, I think, at this point. So they're going to take the first turn, so we finally have a game where we're not going first. They're going to lead by summoning the Aluber here. Fortunately, even though we're going second, we do have Maxx and Lightning Storm both, so as soon as they activate the Despia branded Theater's effect, I will use Maxx to get the draw off here. I thought they would go for Masquerade Dragon, which I wasn't too concerned about, but instead they go for Despian Kerass here, which I think is actually a little bit more annoying in this particular situation than the Masquerade Dragon would have been. They also opened Fusion Destiny, so that's nice, but they at least opened a Dasher as well, so they'll have a DPE in addition to that. But we have our tech Ghost Spell here. This is kind of like the game where Ghost Spell and Lightning Storm like justified their slots in the deck to an extent. I mean, the Lightning Storm's pretty meh here, but only getting 1 target, but still good. We'll go ahead and Ashy Kerass here so they don't get an extra summon. And now I can do the Kitt into Nervall line. I know obviously they've got the DPE out, but knowing that I have the Ghost Spell, I'm not worried about it at all. Plus also the fact that this line summons Almirage, and they, that Almirage is going to be able to protect whatever they try to pop with their DPE. So even if they do try to disrupt the DPE, 1, not only is that not going to be successful, but 2, then they won't be able to even get back their DPE later. So not concerned about it in any way, shape, or form. Still going to summon Shuriken here, even though I don't need to really banish DPE to deal with it. I know they probably won't let that happen anyway. I just kind of want to get rid of the Despia Theater of the branded here. And then, of course, when they activate DPE's effect, I'll use Almirage. But one thing I didn't really consider is a little sneaky maneuver that my opponent does is they're actually going to use DPE to pop their own Despia. And so now I'm forced to banish my own Shuriken. And I didn't really consider that possibility. So, kudos to my opponent for utilizing that line. You were utilizing their effects in that way. Again, we are going to go ahead and Ghost Spell the DPE here, so it's not a problem. And I'll just set the Designator and Revolt both before passing it back over to the opponent. Yep, this is pretty expected here. Set, and then use the Celestial to draw 2 more cards. But they don't have any more gas, so just set a monster and pass. Flip up Revolt during the end phase. I'm going to banish the face down monster because it's 60 cards. They've been using Despia stuff. I'm fairly certain that it's just going to be a Shaddoll monster or something that's face down, and I'd rather just banish that than have it get its flip effect off. And that's also the monster is a little bit more likely to just be a threat in general than either of the back row are, since I know my opponent just set the back row in order to draw 2. There's less of a chance that they're actually active threats. This line is also nice because we get the Shurig back, or this Revolt in particular is nice because we get the Shurig back and we get to send it as a material. So since we still have, I left 1 card banished that I would be able to search a Nervall as well. I've been trying to get into the habit of doing that lately. Just leaving 1 monster banished when you get back Revolt so that you can get an extra Nervall search with the Shurig later if you need it. So here I'll go ahead and normal summon the Nervall, banish 2. Opponent's got a Droplet, but because we are also playing Droplet, I get to use my Crossout Designator pretty well here to negate their Droplet, and then I'll just get to banish their face down with whatever I summon off of the Nervall. But the opponent just concedes before that and gives us the win, so we don't really have to worry about that in either regard. Alright, we've got 1 more game to take a look at here. Let's go ahead and jump straight into it. Last game of this video is going to be against Elder Lich, everybody's favorite golden boy. So, that's another deck it's always, for me personally, satisfying to get a win against. Which is funny, because I used to be the stun player in the actual TCG for the longest time, and now here I am, the combo player who loves to beat down on stun decks. I don't know, it's funny because everybody likes to complain about stun decks, but when you're the stun player, it always feels like a bit of an uphill battle, especially when your opponent goes first like I'm doing here. But I guess fortunately for my opponent in some regard, I actually don't have too much of a ridiculous turn 1. I actually have the least ridiculous turn 1 you can have, which is just a pretty simple Rugal plus Revolt setup. But we do also have a Maxx and a Ghost Spell and a Zoodiac, which is nice. So we have the Disruption and the backup plays, and the opponent's just going to set 4 and activate Elder Lich's effect. But, okay, so it went by quickly in the replay, but obviously during the actual game, my opponent was a little bit more slow about the cards they set. But I want to note to you, because I noted the order that they set the cards in, because the order that, when it comes to hitting 1 random back row with a disruption effect when your opponent has set a bunch right, I like to determine which one I'm going to hit based on the order and sometimes even the formation that your opponent sets them in, which sounds a little bit weird, and there's no real objective gameplay way to point this out. It's just something that you have to kind of pick up on after you've observed enough people play and watch the way that enough people set their back rows, right? So my opponent set them in this row. Here, 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 here. No, sorry, it was here, 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 I believe. So the way that, and I also know this because, again, I played stun decks for a really long time in the TCG, so I used to do the same thing where I would try to set my cards in a certain order based on how my opponent would blow them up with a random one-off effect. So most people, I've noticed, will tend to just destroy the first one that's set, because most people, this is level 1 thinking, right? Oh, the first one they set is the most important, so I'll destroy that one if I'm going to destroy one at random. So if you're a level 2 thinker as the stun player, right, you're going to say, oh, well, then I'll just set my worst one as the first one, because most people tend to target the first one. So then level 3 thinking is then thinking, okay, which one is the opponent then likely to set as their most important one? And that tends, in my experience, to be the second one they set. So if they set 4 like this and you're only going to hit 1, my advice is don't hit the first one, hit the second one. But again, it can also kind of depend on the order that they set them in. So here's another thing that's kind of interesting too, right? Is that my opponent is deliberately leaving the middle zone unoccupied. And I think the reason they're probably doing that is because, imperms tend to get set in the middle zone, at least in my experience. I see people set imperm in the middle zone a lot, and I set it in the middle zone a lot, because it's a common zone to hit stuff with imperm pretty easily is the middle zone. So the fact that they said this over here tends, I don't know. It's again, this is all really subjective, so it's weird for me to be talking about it. But it's just trends I've tended to notice, and I could just be cherry picking an example of where it happened to work well, because I'm sure there's plenty of examples where it doesn't work out like, you know, as intended. But I don't know. I just want to stop and talk about it because it is a factor that goes into that determines, like, you know, the way I play the game to a degree. So I just wanted to talk about it. Yeah, so they'll use the Elder Lich effect to try to get rid of the Rugal. I'm actually going to let that resolve. That's totally fine. But I will go ahead and bring back my Kitt first. I can still revolt because I properly summoned the Rugal. I can still summon that. I have 4 things to get for a what you call it? Blah, 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 or Shurig. That's the one. So yeah, the fact also that they sent this card and then set this one makes me more sure that this is the card to hit. And I believe this is actually going to be a skill drain, which would have really messed me up otherwise, if I recall correctly. Again, I could just be cherry picking an example, but I know I've shown, I know I've talked about this on the channel at least once or twice before, and I've shown other games where hitting the right random back row, it's less random than you think it is. It is ultimately still random. And for that reason, it is ultimately, yeah, it was a skill drain there. It is ultimately still random. For that reason, it is ultimately, I think, a subjective thing to talk about. But I do think there is some merit in talking about trying to figure out which back row to set. Interestingly, the first back row they set was also a floodgate. There can only be one, but it was actually the one between the two that was least impactful against us. Because we can still make, especially as TriZoo, we can make plenty of plays under there can only be one. We're about to do them right now. I'm going to go ahead and banish 2 for the Fragile, because I can still summon a beast. Opponent's got Torrential as the last card, but that's fine because I can still search a Kerass off of the Shurig because I have 2 banished, and I can still use Shurig's effect to banish there can only be one. And I get an extra little filter as well with the Fragile. Which gives us a Feather Duster, which is obviously against Elder Lich not totally irrelevant here. So yeah, like I said, we get the Kerass search with the Shurig there because we have 2 banished, so we still have plenty of plays. We'll send the Kitt. Kitt sends Nervall. Nervall will just add another Kitt. Now we can use Kerass to banish 2. I can summon the double Dragon Lords. That's right, because I thought I still had Bear Bone in my extra deck, but then I realized I didn't. Otherwise, I might have summoned 4 here. Although there's kind of no reason to summon 4 because our opponent doesn't have anything to banish anyway. So maybe this is actually the right play anyway instead of DPE. Just banish 2, summon the last Link 2 we have, which is the double Dragon Oath, and then we can set up the DPE. Now between DPE, Ash, and Feather Duster, I'm like not concerned at all about anything my opponent could possibly do. If they try to summon Elder Lich, Ash will negate pretty much any method of doing that. If they try to, you know, get extra draws off like an Extravagance, if they set a back row, we can DPE it. It's you know, I'm not worried in pretty much any regard. And the Crossout Designator. Oh, I mean, they don't even have any hand traps left. Or cards in hand left to pose as hand traps. I was gonna say that is like the icing on the cake, but again, it's not even needed at all here. So yeah, I'll Ash the Scarlet Sanguine just because I'm gonna, you know, go for game this turn. They'll still get to summon the Lord of the Heavenly Prison, but I mean, I could have gone for game this turn even if that had resolved. To be totally honest, like, because I could have just summoned the Kitt, gotten the Shurig, banished, you know, the Elder Lich, and then DPE pop the Lord of the Heavenly Prison. Because obviously the back row is no threat. We know it's an Extravagance, and yeah, we'll just go ahead and swing in for lethal. So, yeah, we got to showcase a nice win against Elder Lich. Always nice, nice, Jesus. It's always good to see that. Not yet, because good was so much better than nice. Alright, whatever. Let's just go ahead and move on to the outro. Okay, everybody, so I hope you enjoyed those TriZoo games there. I certainly did. I actually had a lot of fun playing TriZoo, and that was a nice little showcase of decks we got to play against. We got to, you know, see a little nice sampling of the meta there, and show how we were able to fare against them. So this is definitely not the last you're going to see of TriZoo, you know, for the ladder climbing, that's for sure. I'll probably switch over to Sword Soul for the rest of Platinum to Diamond, so the next video is definitely going to be Sword Soul, and next one after that will probably be another Sword Soul, but once we get up to Diamond, or maybe if I just get bored, I might switch back to TriZoo, and then my current plan, actually, once I get to Diamond, is to then start showcasing more of a variety of decks that aren't just TriZoo and Sword Soul, because when the climb is going to be a little bit longer, I don't want to just only use the top 2 decks. I feel like that gets a little stale after a while, but I know a lot of people like seeing Sword Soul and TriZoo as well, so I'll definitely also try to keep trying to work them into the rotation too. It's all just about trying to find a balance, you know, I'm always trying to figure out like what people like to see, what they're here for, because I like to show a variety of stuff. Like, I don't want to only show Sword Soul and TriZoo all the time only, but I know people still like seeing them as well, so. But that's all kind of behind the scenes stuff that I am working on, so nothing that you all need to worry about. But thank you for watching the very end of the video like this. I definitely greatly appreciate that, as well as if you are commenting and or subscribing, that is very much appreciated as well. Those are all excellent ways to support the channel, and I just love hearing from you guys in general in the comments, right? Because you guys tend to leave pretty good feedback, nice constructive criticism, and I just love interacting with you guys. I have a great comment section, so definitely like to hear from you. So that's gonna be all for this one. Without further ado, this is XLex signing out. Hope you guys have a fantastic day.